Hello, hello. Welcome back to, as my dear friend Lori calls it, story time. Gosh, Lori, you're amazing. You know that? You're absolutely amazing. Thank you for existing. Anyway, I'm Kit, and we are on chapter 3 of Lost in Time. That made me very nervous to say that. Okay. Oh boy. So yeah, it is at risk. And what happened last time? Essentially, Eli was at work. She had a whole bunch of cleaning to get done, and she had a pretty good day at work. She got to pull a prank on a coworker. It was being a little rude. She was just more in her element. Treated herself to pizza, went to sleep, feeling a little bit more hopeful, and we actually did a POV switch, point of view switch, to her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, Caroline, and get to see a little bit about what's going on with the rest of the family. Because again, a magical book, magical family, except they don't. How do I put this? It's never really explicitly stated that Eli knows that they have magic. It's something she doesn't care about. It's something that I want to address in the rewrite. And then most of them, they were just waiting to see if she'd show any ability, show that she knows, and she didn't, so they don't basically like her. They reached out to her on their level, and she basically said no, and so they don't like her for that. But whole Castor Coven thing and everything else, essentially the Laveaux, which is her family, or one of the other 6 families, well, they're kind of missing out on trying to figure out who is the heir for the Laveaux, who is the heir for each of the different families, because something's not right. And Eliana is on that short list for the Laveaux. Is she? Is she not? That's something Caroline has to find out, and that is what is addressed in chapter 3, which is titled At Risk. So it is still Caroline's point of view. I think it is for the entirety, actually. So yeah, let's just jump in, shall we? Hope everybody's day is going well. It was Saturday morning, June 20th. I went about my routine like it was any other day. Sorry, my brain just sitting there like, wait, the second chapter was called Just Another Day, and this one Any Other Day. That's just funny to me. Anyway, I went about my routine like it was any other day, getting up early to cook breakfast for my daughter and her family, experimenting like I like to do in the kitchen. We all sat down and ate like we've been doing for years. Aliana was quiet, reaching in and grabbing an apple to go. The others never saw her, nor did they hear her. I only noticed because I was looking for her. She has never eaten with us. At first, her mother and I tried to get her to eat with us, but she simply left earlier in the morning to avoid us. Eventually, we gave up, and she became like a ghost in our household. Oh, I did slightly address it. Okay. I haven't read this in years, so this is actually a really good opportunity for me. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity. By the way, Ariana and Trevor didn't mind. Madeline seemed rather snide to her whenever no one was around. And Victor, well, he was always in his own little world. Now, I do want to say Victor does like Eli. I did kind of address it just a little bit, but they kind of have their own thing going on. As for how Carolyn knows Madeline is a little snide, that'll come up a little later. And then also she just is very observant. Why would she never join us? If she didn't have something to hide, I wondered. Oh, excuse me. I was beginning to question a lot of things about Eliana ever since I had woken up this morning. the visions in my sleep showing me more than I had ever thought to question about my mysterious granddaughter. Visions of her playing on the beach as a little girl, squealing when a handsome gentleman tickled her in the sand. Her jumping up and down as an even older gentleman with the same kind eyes as the first, buying her first surfboard. Her grandfather, essentially. The two men teaching her how to use it, and together she and I felt the same rush when she rode her first wave. The visions had shown her even older from then on, organizing files on the floor while the younger man worked at a desk, both of them humming to the radio. She and the older man in the jungle walking through snakes, hiding from Indians with dangerous bows. So many visions and very little answers to any of them. Especially the last one. What was with the jungle and Indians? That had to be my most burning question of all. Ah, pesky visions. What's that? Eli doesn't want to share? Well, too bad. Eli does not like me as an author. As everyone finished their fruit-stuffed French toast breakfast, I love French toast, and Ariana began to clear off the table, I rose and went about my usual day. I got showered and dressed, ready to do my gardening and dusting. I snipped the indoor plant's leaves and carefully dusted our esteemed ancestors' portraits in the halls, their reproving eyes looking down at me. Since I had long since retired, I did a lot of things older women did. Garden, cook, and bingo. Sometimes risk, if the senior citizens down at the senior center can handle the strain of adrenaline. Sorry, that's probably a bad joke, but it's a quiet inside family joke. From the few times I took my grandmother to the senior citizen center before she lost her mind. I kept a close eye on the phone. I was waiting for the other families to let me know about their heirs. Finishing inside the now sparkling brownstone home, I attached the headset to the modern wireless phone, grabbing my gardening gloves and shears, marching outside. I took great pride in my roses and shrubs lining the front. They made different colors, bringing a pop to the reddish brown brick. As the sun made its way across the high sky, the phone rang over and over, confirming what I had already suspected. Charlotte, Jackson, Alaric, Vivian, Isabella. All were confirmed to be heirs. Oh, that's right. The six families. I was about to say, I think I got my math wrong. All were confirmed to be heirs. I heaved a heavy sigh, taking a moment to wipe the specks of dirt off of my flowered garden apron. Next, I called the Deed and Montenay households, inviting both Evangeline and Susan over. The mothers. I dusted my knees off, grabbed my gardening items, and headed inside to freshen up. Ariana and her husband had left over an hour ago, and it was now 1 o'clock. Trevor had some sort of important business luncheon and needed to bring his trophy wife. Scowled at the thought as I applied powder to my petite nose. I had never thought Trevor was good enough for my little girl, but she never listened to me. I always told her to go with that beach boy if he had made her so happy. But she'd come home alone, a different woman, and practically fled to the altar with Trevor. I forgot that Ariana hadn't confided in Carolyn. Oh, I forgot about that. Y'all, this is why I need to. Oh, okay. Didn't realize you read this far. I'm sorry. It's just. I don't know why I feel weird. I don't know. I just didn't realize. It's been so long. It's 2018 was when that was. I made a comment back, apparently. Okay. Alright, whatever. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I heard the thuds of my grandson Victor running flat out to get it. Madeline yelled at him as he ran past our door, no doubt watching some sort of teen TV show that was very dramatic. I would never understand the appeal. I heard the mumbling of voices and a scoff. Oh dear. I hurried down the rickety old stairs in good need of some repairs, just in time to see Eva and Susan snapping at each other with Victor uncomfortably between them, stuck. Help! He mouthed at me, sparkling gray eyes, wide with apprehension and panic. British English. Hello. Smoothing my sundress, I cleared my throat and marched down the rest of the stairs, my white sandals making slapping noises as I walked towards them. Ladies, enough. Honestly, it's a wonder the world hasn't blown up yet with you two occupying it. Can you not resolve your differences? I called you both here for help, not for a potential visit from the mortal police. Gently scolding them while grasping Victor in my hands and tugging him away at the same time, I gave both the smoldering women disappointed looks. Evangeline looked sheepishly embarrassed while Susan just scoffed and glanced away. Victor tapped my shawl-covered arm. Grandma, I'm hungry. Can we make lunch now? I smiled adoringly at him. He was my youngest grandchild, and only grandson after all. Yes, Victor began. Run on up and go play, and we'll call you and your sister down when it's ready, all right? He nodded and scampered up the stairs. Susan raised an eyebrow at the we, but humored my unspoken request as the two of them followed me to the kitchen. Have either of you eaten? Both shook their heads. I smiled and continued. Sandwiches sound good to me. Reuben's even better. Briskly, I gathered the items required, splitting them up with Susan as Eva took a seat at the expansive island counter. Susan warmed up my four-sandwich panini press. At this time, I was obsessed with panini presses and paninis. Still love them, by the way. I just don't know where that press is. Anyway, and lathered up the rye bread while I compiled the pastrami, sauerkraut, and cheese in a skillet. Oh, yeah. Because this person's in the UK, so I guess they didn't know what that was, which kind of surprised me. So, only Victor and Madeline left the test then, Susan said conversationally. I nodded, frowning at a sudden thought. Eva noticed it first. What is it, Caroline? She asked me, frowning. My hands hesitated before continuing to push the food around the sizzling skillet. I turned down the fire and turned to them, sighing. I don't think Madeline is there. I paused, deciding to be blunt. But I believe Eliana is. Or at the very least, she has magic. Silence followed my statement before the scraping of a stool echoed through the stone kitchen as Eva stood up. Susan has abandoned the bread slices, mouth open in shock. What on earth makes you say that, of all things? I believe she is Susan, yeah. I shrugged, trying to navigate my way through the many emotions that were flickering through me at an alarming rate. Yes, there was definitely something there. Something magical about Eliana. Something the spirits have been trying to relay to me, but I've foolishly not listened. It's odd, don't you think? That she never spends any time with us is so normal, considering her mother's heritage, and I don't see Ariana being with a mortal. She's a mystery, always hiding in the shadows. Leaves early in the morning, always ready to go before I even have breakfast ready most days, and gets back late at night. Walkabouts, she says, and while I didn't doubt it at first, what kind of teenager takes walkabouts at all hours without being in a gang or having tattoos? Any time spent here she keeps to herself, up in her room with no visitors. Silent, too. No music, no TV blaring, no friends or sleepovers. What kind of teenage girl is that? Doesn't she have a secret to hide? And again, as that little comment on the side, Eli is 16 at this point, with like 3 days before her 17th birthday. Or 2 days? 1 day? It's pretty close. Within the week. Finishing my musings, I looked up to see Eva frowning thoughtfully, pondering the implications, while Susan finished with the bread. I turned the stove top off. Excuse me. The fire making a faint pop as it sizzled into nothingness, and handed her the skillet, which she handled with efficiency, spinning big proportions of the mixture onto the waiting slices of bread before putting them together in the press. So you're right, that she does have magic, that she does have secrets, isn't a moody teenager like the best of them. How would we go about testing her? Figuring out her secrets? Susan asked me, fishing one of the sandwiches out of the press and putting another one in. Silently, Eva got 5 plates down for the 5 sandwiches and started to arrange some vegetables on the side, still deep in thought. Perhaps we can go about it bluntly. No quid pro quo. Crow? Quo? 15 minutes before I slurred my sentences, huh? Just show her the language. She either will or won't be the heir. Eva reasoned. Susan snorted but shrugged. That was as much agreement as the two would ever get, I feared. As for me, I thought she had a valid point. In a lot of ways, Aliana was like an adult. Perhaps it was time to treat her as such, at least in this instance. I nodded at her, ready to concede to her plan. Alright, let's do it. I just want it known Eli is a lot more of an adult than most people realize. She's already got a full-time job. Of her own volition, her own choice, and she's already graduated. It was simple. When the kids came down for lunch, Eva showed Victor an authentic Legos magazine that was in French, with a special encryption on the page of his current favorite Legos, The Hobbit. When he complained none of it was in English, we moved to phase two. Madeline. Hers was a little difficult, for how could we test her without her becoming suspicious? Thankfully, Susan took that one, and a fashion magazine in front showed up, signed in flourishing script that was the ancient language. Keep in mind, her daughter, Vivian, I believe, if I remember correctly, is Madeline's one of Maddie's best friends, and they are very, very into fashion right now. So, and so is Susan, actually, so there's that. We all held our collective breaths as she eagerly flipped through the page on the magazine, trying to understand the French with her limited French 2 class knowledge. You'd think you'd know a lot of French, but really you don't. Then she closed it with a huff and a snap of the thin pages, complaining, "Well, that was crap. I can't understand anything. I'm heading off to the movies now. I'm meeting up with Suze and Viv." Yeah, Suzanne and Viv. Stunned silence that was thick with disbelief followed her out. Susan's eyes were wide, and she was wordlessly spluttering. I didn't know if it was at the insult to her precious magazine, which looked very well kept, and she handled it like it was a precious gem, or the fact she wasn't the heir. Eva was the only one of us the least surprised. I myself was experiencing euphoric relief coupled with disappointment in myself and Ariana. Together we had raised Madeline, tested her and her magic, and just assumed she was the heir. How could I have missed it? In my mental crisis, I almost missed Eva speaking. Well, one more left, I guess? She made it sound like a question. I sighed heavily, noting that Victor had left the table and taken his plate to the sink. He was learning. I copied him, talking as I did so. I believe he's 9 years old, by the way, so, you know. Then let's go see what we can find. 5 minutes later, we three walked up the many flights of stairs in companionship, ready for anything we would find. Except a locked door. Frowning, I tugged at the brand new lock. "What in the world?" I demanded, as if it could talk. Susan smirked in mirthful laughter. Here we walked, ready to take on anything thrown at us. Then we get stymied by a door. Oh, the irony. Eva tried to be helpful, so anyone know how to pick a lock or have a key at the mention of lockpicking and name sprouted from my lips? Victor! So you might think you're magic. Why don't they just Alohomora it, for instance? Something else that I could really should address on the rewrite. Basically, they want to be in and out without any tampering, any sort of thing. They don't know what Eli's abilities are, so they don't know if she'd be able to tell if they broke in or not um, via magic. So, and they also, really reasonably, you might assume, although here they're not really that worried about it, as you can see. I mean, magical wards and whatnot, so. So, why do you need it in there anyway? Victor asked me for the third time as he trudged up the stairs. I wouldn't be a crochet vlog episode if my headset decided to not just go to sleep. Yeah. As he trudged up the stairs with his lockpicks in hand. For a prankster, he seemed very reluctant to break into her room. It was only through bribery and blackmail that we managed to convince him. 9-year-olds were so easily bought. He had to run back to his room to collect his tools, grumbling the entire time. He was getting away with his latest prank on Madeline, grotesque hair dye in her shampoo bottle, and new Legos. He could definitely seem happier, I thought dryly. Yeah, but see, he does like, he likes Eli, but he's also 9 and he wants Legos. Okay, I gotta read this. Oh yeah, I love this little guy. I love him too. Ah. Susan answered me, standing beside Eva in the tight space of the attic landing. Your grandmother wants to know what she is getting herself into before she determines the best course of action to test Eliana with. Victor's eyes widened. Madeline was finally found out not to be the heir? Yippee! He shouted, jumping up and down in the air, before calming down and approaching the door. The three of us stared at him, open-mouthed. How did he know? Victor fiddled with the lock. The small click could be heard and the door swung open. Beaming, he stood back and motioned us through. It was only then that he noticed our shocked faces. What? It was obvious, wasn't it? She always mispronounced the words of the spells, and her magic sucks. At least my magic doesn't set things on fire and break stuff on accident. With a toss of his head and a pompous attitude, he waltzed into Eliana's room. Eva gave a small smile and followed him. Eventually, we were all standing in the middle of Eliana's tiny bedroom, warily eyeing everything. Well, perhaps we should start with the desk? Eva shrugged her shoulders, tense. Who wanted to be in a teenage girl's room invading her privacy? Victor sighed, shaking his head. She keeps nothing of true importance there. The real good stuff is in the bathroom and the trunk under the bed. Also check her nightstand drawers. God, I love Victor. Susan raised her eyebrows at him, but complied, heading to the nightstand first. Victor grabbed my hand and tugged, none too gently, leading me to the friendly bathroom. She was very neat. Look at these. Victor ransacked her counter drawer, where there were countless pairs of spare glasses. I raised an eyebrow. Why would she need that many extras? Well, gee, she loses them all the time. She's got a little brother who likes to break in and take them. Uh, accidents happen when you go traveling through time and get into dangerous situations. Victor waved a pair at me and I put them on at his request. I squinted. You see perfectly fine, right? They're all like that. It's like she wears glasses just to wear them. And here, she has contacts, but she's always wearing those glasses. Aren't contacts boxes supposed to have numbers and stuff on them for your prescription or something? He had a box and was examining it, then shrugged, handing it to me. I examined it. There was no prescription, just natural hazel contact lenses? I read out loud, perplexed. Eva stuck her head in the doorway. She has colored contacts? Weird. Her desk just has a bunch of locations marked on a map, reports all written in either code or a funky language, or is shorthanded really tiny. Finding out stuff. This is about to get interesting. Anyone know where she works? Because I want to avoid that place full out if they have that much paperwork. Honestly, me too. She wrinkled her nose. Give me school children any time. Ethel was an elementary teacher, which according to her had just the right amount of paperwork. Yeah, no, screw that. Couldn't do it. What the heck? Isn't this trunk? It's heavy. Susan grunted, and we heard an audible creak and thump, presumably as the trunk was lifted then deposited on the main bed. We three walked back into the room after setting the bathroom back to order. It was an old-fashioned trunk with an even older lock, which gave Victor a bit of trouble for a minute or two. Eventually, he got it through. He got it though, and the lid flew open. We all peered inside. It was filled to the brim with old scrapbooks and tons of little knickknacks and lots of, well, crap. A button, a shoelace, seashells, old CDs, a scarf here and there, an old t-shirt with a suspicious stain on it, i.e. blood, a corset, some bullets, a very old gun, some very sharp teeth, then even a taser. Susan was the first to speak, peering warily into a small glass vial filled with red liquid. Do I even want to know? She said disgustedly. I was pacing, absent-mindedly watching Victor play with the gun, which wasn't loaded. I definitely checked. Eva hummed quietly as she flipped through one of the books, her brow furrowed in thought. Who is this? She asked, showing all of this. It showed a much younger Eliana with two familiar-looking, smiling men. One obviously older with gray hair. Hello, British English. Dear God. And a man with his arm around Eliana's shoulders, with sandy blonde hair and a buff build. They were all at a beach, and they were smiling happily into the camera, their faces frozen in time. They were all clearly related, as they all shared the same sky blue eyes. Except Eliana only had one blue eye. I leaned forward, eyes focusing on her left eye. It was a deep green, darker in the sunlight, just like her mother's. I leaned back, puffing a breath out as I did so. The visions made sense now, as the name that sprung into my mind. I hadn't been able to remember the name of Ariana's crush from so long ago until now. Carter Bishop, Eliana's father. Eva and Susan both gasped, looking up at me. When did this happen? Eva wanted to know, just as Susan exclaimed loudly. Were they together? Hello? Were they together when she was married to Trevor? Both glared at each other for interrupting. Victor stopped playing to look up at me curiously, listening intently. I sighed, answering all of their questions. Before Trevor, I never knew that I had another granddaughter until she showed up on our front doorstep this past year. After that, I sat Ariana down and made her tell me everything. It was a summer romance. You remember that year she traveled and didn't come home for over a year? She was pregnant. She was going to be married, and I remember her being so happy over the phone. Carter this and Carter that. But something changed. She never told me she was pregnant, that she had a daughter, and when she came home, she simply told me it was over. She was never the same carefree girl again. She met Trevor, and, well, you know the rest. Victor frowned and continued to play. Susan was blinking rapidly, and Eva's mouth was hanging open. Well, geez. Did not expect Ariana to have been a crazy girl. She always seemed so dull. I mean, a summer romance, then she got knocked up. Doesn't add up. Susan muttered, miffed. And she didn't even bring Eliana back. No wonder Eliana keeps to herself. There are no pictures of her mother. Ariana must have never visited her. Ding, ding, ding! Eva said softly, examining the rest of the books. We all looked at each of the trinkets and just the room's objects in general as the sun began to descend across the sky. When the clock chimed 4, we got up and stretched, putting the room back to rights. The trunk was once again locked, the desk restored to the mess of papers it had been before, and with everything fixed in its proper place, we strolled out of the bedroom. Something caught my eye, hanging on the back of the door, and I called Eva back. Susan was taking Victor out to the garden to play with his new football his father had gotten him, as she somehow knew how to play. Of course, her husband was a major sports fan, so it was understandable. It was a calendar. We both studied it, gently taking it off the nail ingrained in the painted door. Curiously, we flipped through it. It was a calendar with a beach theme of California. Dimly, I remembered that Eliana was from California. Through every day was an X, all the way up to the current day. As we flipped through the months, we noticed there was very little written in the way of events, but I felt like she was counting down to something, considering she had a number on each day. Today was marked 368. What is the countdown for, though? I murmured to myself. Eva's eyes brightened with an idea. Perhaps it's a countdown until she turns 18? What is she, 16 or 17, right? Considering she has a job already and graduates in one more year, that would make sense. When is her birthday, anyway? I shook my head. I had no idea. A bit of guilt made itself known to my conscience. I didn't even know the simplest things about my oldest granddaughter. I didn't know who most of the people that decorated her walls were, meaning photographs. I didn't recognize any of the places, nor did I know that she played video games, from the posters and the console plugged into the TV in the corner. I made a mental note to ask Victor what Assassin's Creed was. Eva flipped the calendar back to the right month and hung it back up neatly. Together we left the room, careful to flip the lock back on our way out. So she's got a lot of postcards and just things like that. Because I mean, she's a traveler. She travels a lot. She really likes to take photographs and just kind of have those memories. I've always wanted to do that. So Eva began talking about some problem children in her classes at work, but all I could think about was Eliana and how I had failed. I'm pretty sure. Or wait, maybe there's. Okay, yeah, no, there's a little bit more. I thought there was a little less. Yeah. There's a little less. There's a little bit more. Okay, that's fine. So we're actually gonna just stop right now. Where is it? Okay, we're just gonna put. We're just gonna do a little thing here. Okay, so that is that. Let's see. This is how I kind of make a little mental note for myself. Da 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 da. Anyway, and then I highlight it for good measure. But yeah, so that is gonna be today's episode. Hopefully we got a good chunk of yarn work done. I think I'm working on the scarf. Think I am. Maybe. Maybe it's squares. I don't know. I haven't recorded that part yet at this point. um, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things I can address in the rewrite, but I'm enjoying going back and exploring it a bit. So yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I don't know. I have no idea. I know this isn't exactly what I usually do on the channel, but I'm really enjoying it. Would love to kind of do more stuff like this. So I don't know. If people like it, just let me know, I guess. I don't know. And Lori, if you watch this and get to this part, I hope you have a wonderful day. Yeah. This is Kit. This is my dirty little secret. Kind of what it feels like. And I'm going to go now. So have a great day. Bye.